Hi everyone, today I want to talk about Eternal Strands. This game is about to release in 2 days and I just finished streaming the demo. I played all the way through, I grinded a little bit, but I haven't finished everything the demo has to offer. I just wanted to put my first impressions, initial thoughts on the game out there. If you guys know me, you know I like all these action RPG, kind of like open world type things, or not even massively open worlds, but games that I can get to explore and find collectibles and go through a narrative story, stuff like that. Also, if you notice my voice being a little weird, I'm a little sick, but I still wanted to make something and put it out there. So where do we start? I think we start by talking about what drew me to the game when I first saw the reveal trailer, stuff like that. I enjoy the graphics, the color palette, the vibrant colors and all that stuff. I'm a sucker for all of that. I love all of those super bright, super fantasy colors. You can think of like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Immortal Phoenix Rising. That's another one. That was a good one. And you know, games that generally go along those lines. So if you like those aesthetics, then this game is probably going to be right up your alley on that front. But let's move to combat. I think the combat in the game feels a bit floaty. It doesn't feel as snappy as something that I would expect from a game like this. Like if you think about Immortal Phoenix Rising, the combat was very solid. If you think about Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, the combat was not as snappy as you might think, but it was familiar enough to a Zelda game to make it feel comfortable. With Eternal Strands, the combat is not bad. I'm not saying the combat is not okay, but what I'm saying is that on an action-adventure game that you're going around exploring, and you can think back also like Kona, Bridges of Spirit, the combat is always very solid. It's very snappy, very concise to what it does. In this game, the combat is a little bit different. The people that kept coming to chat kept saying that it's because it's a physics-based combat, and I understand what they mean about a physics-based combat, but in reality, it doesn't feel like it's responsive enough for a game of this type. I still enjoyed it. I just wanted something a little more snappy. That's what I'm used to, but I'm getting used to the combat in this game, and it's not a deal breaker to me right now. I'm only 6 hours in through the demo, and I still want to know more. And here's the reason why. Combat against normal enemies around in the map where you're exploring, gathering resources are not the key component of this game, but the combat against the bosses, though, you have like a giant drake that flies around, and then you have like these mechanical automatons that you have to figure out how to beat. At first, when I was fighting with one, I was just doing damage and not realizing, okay, well, I can actually solve a puzzle fighting this boss, right? And that's where people are comparing this game to Shadow of Colossus. I've never played Shadow of Colossus in the past. However, someone in chat came over and said, hey, you know, you can just remove the plates and you will expose the heart and you'll be able to harvest it. So when I did that, when I focused on doing that, I actually understood the combat a lot better. It's not just going to be about doing as much damage to reduce the health. It's also going to be, are you trying to kill the enemy, or are you trying to get harvest his essence to enable your magic to be more powerful? And that's another thing I'm going to touch on in a little bit. But with that said, with the shift of thinking, okay, so the goal is not to bring down the health. The goal is to figure out where the weak spot to harvest this boss is. It made the game a lot more intricate for me. And I think that is the main reason why the combat feels the way it does, is because it's not just about doing the damage. It's about figuring out how to kill these guys. Now, will it change as you use different weapons? It kind of does. If you're playing with your sword and shield, you're more nimble, you have a way of defense and stuff like that. Then you have your bow. In my opinion, the bow is really cool. I think it feels a bit weird to aim, and there's like some slow motion going on sometimes. But the bow itself feels pretty good. The projectile, it's what you would expect from a ranged weapon like that. But then you also have like a great sword. And this greatsword does a lot more damage. It's a lot slower, but it does provide you a easier way to break monsters' armor parts, if you will. A good example is I was fighting this dragon that's running around or flying around. I was shooting the horn to try and break it, because that's one of the things you need to do to expose its weak spot on the back. You have to break both horns, and I think you break one wing, and then the part on the back gets exposed, and then you can harvest it once it flies around. Well, when I was using most of the damage with the bow, it took forever to break those parts. Like the bow, it seemed like didn't have enough strength to break them. Then the second time I fought it, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to try and climb up and use my greatsword to hit the horns and break them. 3 or 4 hits with the greatsword broke the horn. Now I'm just like, okay, this is completely different. So it not only rewards you to try to use the different weapons that you have, it also rewards you to be more strategic on the things that you do while you're on a fight on one of these bosses. They call them epic hunts. You open your quest log, you'll see an epic hunt, and you can see, okay, so you can kill the Ash Drake or whatever it was called, and that's how you get some information on how to do things against them, right? The more you kill an enemy, it's kind of like Monster Hunters in a way that you get more information, you get a codex, and they give you tips into how to kill the boss or what to do. So even though the combat didn't feel how I was expecting it to feel, I still think it's okay. If you're thinking of an action-adventure game that's going to be like a hack and slash, stuff like that, that's not the case in this game. I think you have to be a lot more methodical with what you do, but also it gives you enough freedom to, if you want to kind of like take a few shots with your bow, get some damage done, and then kind of figure out the moveset of the enemy, you can do that and kind of move on and adjust your strategy against the enemy you're fighting. Now, the small enemies don't really matter. You kill them pretty quickly. You just got to do headshots if you're using a bow, or just make sure you don't, evade attacks and stuff like that. The telegraph on some of the smaller enemies, like if you're using a sword or shield, I found to be a little weird because I couldn't quite see some of the attacks coming in. Yes, there's some that they will. For example, there's a kind of like a wolf dog looking enemy that will kind of like scratch you or swipe you. You can clearly see when the claw comes back and is about to hit, but there's some other attacks that do not have that telegraph, and it's like you're fighting and all of a sudden you get hit and you're like, okay, what just happened? So that didn't feel great. That I think that contributes to the combat not feeling as snappy as it should, but it is probably all by design. I mean, it's not that terrible. But moving on to the story, it's a little slow. So what I mean when I say it's a little slow, most of the lore of the game is going to be given to you in optional text. Like if you will be walking around, the characters will have like a bubble on top of their head. That is a sign of, okay, let's go talk to this guy because he has some new text for me, some new dialogue. I am not a fan of that. I feel like that makes it... So it kind of breaks the pacing of the game because you're doing a main mission. You're exploring and doing your main quest. And all of a sudden you see all these guys with all these bubbles on their head, and then you go talk to them, and you're now stuck in a 20, 30 minute talking simulator. You're just talking to them. You're just seeing what they are. Like it gives you a nice context on what those characters feel and how are they being developed in the game. But at the same time, I feel like it breaks the pace of the game. It kind of breaks, I don't want to say immersion. This is not necessarily an immersive game, but it breaks the immersion of the world. It breaks the way that your character is progressing through these challenges that are happening. Now, with that said, the main quest, if you focus on that does feel pretty good. You're going through a mission, you're doing things, and it kind of guides you towards upgrading your character. It shows you how to, craft your gear, upgrade it, all that stuff. It's very cool. That's one of the things I want to touch on. The character progression, it's very, very good. It doesn't seem overwhelmingly complicated, but it does feel that has some depth to it. For example, you can craft a new weapon. You can also reforge that weapon to be better, have better items on it. And you can also upgrade that weapon so that it's stronger. So it also applies to the armor. The armor, you will have there's cold and there's fire, there's different resistances, heat and cold resistance. Let's say that you're gonna go through an area that is gonna be a lot of cold, right? There's gonna be a lot of ice and stuff. So if you have a lot more ice resistance or frost resistance, you're gonna fare better than having no frost resistance at all. You will take periodic damage if you don't have enough resistances, so this is very important, and you have potions to help you. You got only one potion. What that makes it do is you can have a set that is built for whenever the climate of the map, which changes depending on the day, is colder or whatever, right? So it brings a lot of complexity to the table, but it's not overwhelming. And that system, combined with the systems of how to fight the bosses in this game, kind of rounds up this nice little package where, okay, you can customize your character to fit your playstyle. And if you're fighting an enemy that is, let's say, fire element or ice element, then you can have a gear set that's specific to that, which I think it plays well with each other. So my whole goal about playing this game on the demo was to figure out if I wanted to buy it on day one or if I wanted to buy something else. I think I want to give this game a shot and play it all the way through. I don't think the combat is gonna be a deal breaker to me. I think the fact that it feels a little floaty and the movements of your characters also feel a bit floaty, I think I can deal with. And I'm hoping that as I progress through the game, I get used to the way that the game is meant to be played. And not only that, I am curious to learn more about the world. I'm one of the guys that when I'm playing games like this, I want to know what's happening. And I feel like the story itself is gonna be pretty good. I am intrigued about what's happening in this world so far. I think it does a good job of like setting you in the first hours of the demo. By the way, the demo took me about 6 hours to complete. I don't think that's a long time. I think if you want to kind of check it out, it's free before you get the game, you should. Why not, right? I mean, it's free again, just in a few hours. And I would hope that this game ends up being what I'm expecting it to be. I am kind of excited to it. I need something else to play before Monster Hunter Wilds comes out. So I'll be playing that over on the streams, and you can check the streams with the links in the description. You know the details by now. But anyways, short video, just wanted to put something out there. I need to get myself better so I can talk, because I feel like I can't really speak. I can't even breathe right now. But anyways, it's fine. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. I will see you guys in the next video. And again, remember, Twitch stream, all that stuff. Comments below. Bye-bye.